gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 335. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I am joined by resident old bastard Chris Saturn.
Hello.
I want you to know that my hand movements have become so elaborate whenever I do the intro now that I'm kind of worried about recording in person.
Yeah. Well, if we do, we'll just have to give you little flags while you do it.
Is that it?
That way it looks more exaggerated.
It does look like I'm signaling ships in the night. You know. So first up, we have housekeeping, which is that we are doing a holiday recording schedule.
Yeah.
So basically, we are people like you, listener, and and the holidays are kind of crazy for us.
So
also.
let's break it down in the simplest way. So we normally record every other week, right?
Yes.
And
2 episodes every other week.
Right. And one of our recording schedules for December would have fallen on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
And that would have been very inconvenient. So we decided that, like crazy people, the easiest way to shuffle this around would be, what if we just recorded 4 episodes in 2 weeks?
Yeah, which for people keeping track at home, the mathematicians out there, that's a lot of episodes in a very short amount of time with very little research. So what that means is we're picking kind of broader topics.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't affect the format of the show and you don't even notice and you forget I even said this, like it always seems to happen.
Yeah, it also means that we're going to go 4 weeks without a recording after that 4th episode. So not this episode, but 3 episodes from now will be the last one for 4 weeks. So one, the news is going to back up if there is any news over the
well, to be fair, it's the holiday. News slows down. You know, it could be fine. It could be fine.
Yeah, it could be. And then also we could completely forget how to do the show, and we could come back and suddenly it's a skateboarding show. We don't know. We don't know what will happen.
We have no idea. Yeah. So all of this to say that if the shows are like shorter or weird or whatever, it's because we're trying to give ourselves a holiday break. We've never had a holiday break on the show, but we would like to have a couple weeks for Christmas and New Year's where we aren't. Well, I'll still have to record several shows in that time.
Yeah, have fun with
that. But not this show,
right?
Which is my biggest show that as far as like workload and time. This gets the majority of my attention.
Sure.
So we're basically taking a holiday break. So if things are weird, sorry, they'll be back to normal in a few episodes.
Yeah.
And I suspect by the 4th episode of this weird recording block, it's going to be especially strange. So just get ready.
Yeah.
Just prepare.
For people who don't get the uncut, who are just listening live as they get posted to the regular feed, the first episode when we go back to normal will be the one that releases on January 17th, which is episode 339. So that's when things will start to feel normal again. Maybe. Yeah. We'll see.
And for uncut patrons, that means all your episodes are going to be front loaded in the month, and I'm going to try to remember to put an announcement on Patreon for people that don't get that. I don't know why you wouldn't hear this if you're on our Patreon, but you probably are going to hear it. Yeah. So, you're going to get a bunch of front-loaded episodes. So enjoy that. Space them out, right? So just don't listen to them for a week, so that you got to pace yourself, right? It's the holidays. You got to practice discipline and pacing.
Or just binge them all and then spend the rest of the month just trying to figure out what the fuck we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, for the last half of the month, just go read Wikipedia about video games in a funny voice, and that's basically, you've got it. That's 90% of the work.
Just find an old website that hasn't been updated in 15 years that's all about some game you've never heard of. Read that and make fart jokes.
Yeah, there you go.
In.
Anyway, my week, I've been playing more of the Pokemans. I think I'm a little over the halfway point, still playing Pokemon Pearl, still very much enjoying it. Okay. I had a very good discussion with our editor, Pablo, about the game on After Hours, which will be coming out a couple days after the uncut version of this show goes out. So should be up by December 5th, maybe 6th, where we just talked about Pokemon for 45 minutes on the show and then an hour after the show. It's just real fun, man. It's kind of making me want to check out Sword and Shield because I skipped those ones. Because I didn't like the ones before them, Sun and Moon, and
I heard there's no Bulbasaurs and Sword.
Well, they've now they've added Bulbasaur.
Oh,
so now I'm like, all right, I'm in. Let's do it. But So it's kind of making me want to check those out. And he was just kind of explaining to me like where the game is at, what it looks like, what, like what the differences are. My problem is now I really want to go check out Sword and Shield because I'm playing this one, which is an older Pokemon.
Sure.
And he's like, yeah, well, here's all the new things from the new one, which is many generations newer than Pearl.
Right.
Even though this is a current remake, they keep them, pretty true to form.
Fair.
And so I really want to try out Sword and Shield now because all that stuff sounds really nice, quality of life improvements. But I'm like, if I do that, I'm not going to go back to Pearl.
Right.
Yeah, so I got to get through it. I think I've got my 5th gym badge out of 8 because I know you don't know, Saturn. There's 8 gym badges.
I'm glad that you did specify that. I was going to ask.
Right, you do 8 gym badges, and then you fight the Elite 4, and then there's usually 1 or 2 final battles, and that's the game. That's although if you're a Pokemon player, that's when the game starts because the game does not really start until the post game for a lot of Pokemon players. But yeah, still really enjoying Pokemon and having a good time with it. What have you been doing?
Well, I finished the FF5 Pixel Remaster. That was good.
How did you find it?
It's fine. Like I mentioned last time, it didn't have the same kind of upgrades the other Pixel Remasters did as far as making it easier. But otherwise, it was fine. It was a good port of the game. As long as you're just looking for a vanilla port, it does its job. So there's that. I did download it was a game that I'd been looking at for a while that I did not ever get around to playing because it has cards, and that's usually a turnoff for me.
Oh yeah, right. You don't like cards,
right? That's the thing. And,
I like to imagine that like you won't even use a credit card. Like, get it out of here.
No, I'm generally fine with card games. Like I enjoy traditional card games, like played with a deck of cards.
Like, okay. Yeah, or I know you also like, like board game style card games. Where it's all in the box, and you take it out and you play it. Yeah. You're not. You don't do the trading cards.
Right. I don't want to trade when they're trading, and I don't like when the strategy gets too deep. I want it to be like I am dealt a hand and I play it more than I have to carefully build a deck. Oh, that's too much. For me.
Nobody builds decks anymore. They just look up the list online.
Oh, that's so much better. So it was a game called Inscription, but it's spelled like the word crypt is in the middle.
Okay, so wrong. It's incorrectly spelled.
Well, it's crypt themed. So
off to a bad start. Yeah, they can't even spell it.
Right. It's made by the same guy that made Pony Island.
I'm aware of that. Yeah,
which I enjoyed. So I decided to give this a shot.
Sequel to Barbie Horse Adventure, where you have an island full of ponies and you brush them.
Pretty much that is. You should never play Pony Island, but for everyone else, it is a fun little meta horror game.
All right. So no, I'm gone. No, thank you.
But this one, the description they have for the game is it is an inky black card based odyssey that blends the deck building roguelike, escape room style puzzles, and psychological horror into a blood laced smoothie.
Saturn, you only like one of those, maybe 2, depending on how much you like smoothies. I don't know your smoothie opinion. So
I like puzzles.
Okay.
And I like horror. And,
so 2 to 3 of those.
And I like smoothies. So, all right. But the deck building roguelike part really turned me off. But the presentation of it was enough that I was like, I'll give it a shot. And I downloaded it, and like the environment and the presentation is all really neat. I really like that. I like the way the graphics look. I like the way the voice direction or the text and all that is done. It's all great. That's all great. And then they gives you a bunch of cards, and I just tune out. So unfortunately, it was not enough to say we just yet. I might give it another shot, but as of now, it's not.
So is it like you're building a deck kind of thing?
I don't know. All the cards that I have so far seem to represent roadkill. That's
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Like I have squirrels and opossums, and
I do wonder, because a lot of card games that say they're like card games or deck builders, what they really mean is they're like, hey, we're going to give you a deck. And then every now and then we'll be like, hey, do you want this card or this card to add to your deck? Right. And so it's not really deck building in the TC, because that's how like Slay the Spire does it. They're like, here's your deck, and then you finish an encounter, and it's like, hey, do you want to add one of these cards? And you're like, all right, I'll add that one. I like that one. And it's
from what I hear, you can sacrifice the cards to whatever dark, funny thing is in the game, and turn them into stronger cards by sacrificing them.
Okay. Yeah.
and that is apparently how you build your deck. I don't know.
see.
I don't know how in depth it is though, because again, I don't play enough card games to have.
So a little more complex than something like Slay the Spire, which is pretty much like, you did it. We want one of these. Okay, bye. Like, it really removes the majority of the choice out.
Nice.
You know, because I'm the same way. I don't enjoy. I know it's going to sound weird coming from me, but I don't enjoy building decks.
Huh.
I like to have like someone make like a baseline deck, and then I can play it a little bit, and then go, all right, I like it, but I'd like a little more of this or a little more. You know what I mean? Like I like tweaking it,
Sure.
because after I've played it, I know what I do and don't like. But games that are just like, there's a bunch of cards, I'm like, oh no, I cannot do this. I'm so bad.
I also, because of all the years of playing mostly single player games in my life, my instinct in every game is I want to absolutely optimize it. I want to have the definitive optimal strategy. I want to maximize everything I can maximize.
Well, no, hold on. I feel like, to clarify, you want there to be a perfect strategy as well. Like there has to be a correct answer.
Right. Yeah.
Not just a bunch of good answers.
Right, yeah. And if there are a bunch of good answers, I want one of them to be gooder than the other ones.
Yeah, necessarily the best.
Yeah, or at the very least, I want them all to be interesting in their goodness. So that there's a reason to look at the different ones, so that maybe style falls into it. But I always want to optimize everything to be the best, and I don't want to be at any disadvantage for any reason unless I intentionally chose that disadvantage. And which is why I don't like multiplayer in general, because that's I know it's an unfair way to look at things.
I know it's been repeated in the Discord many times, but I'm curious how you would find Slay the Spire.
Yeah,
specifically that one.
Yeah, well, I see it all the time everywhere. So isn't it on Game Pass?
Yeah. It was. It might still be. Right. It was for a while. Like I would be like, I don't know that you'd love it or not. But I would be curious of your how much you do or don't enjoy that, just out of sheer curiosity of your tastes.
Right. Fair enough.
Because I can't tell.
Yeah, someday maybe I'll build up the courage to try it.
Let's do the news.
Yes.
First up, Zelda Ocarina of Time has been decompiled.
Yes,
that's good.
Yeah, if we remember right, that was the first step towards the PC port of Mario 64, was people decompiled its code, and we're like, well, this means that we can therefore port and recompile it. And now that's happened to Ocarina of Time as well, which means hopefully someday we'll get a PC port of Ocarina of Time that brings in all the quality of life improvements that the 3DS version had, so that I can play the better version again, but not have to cramp over a 3DS the whole time. That's what I'm hoping for.
Because you hate fun. As we've
right.
I will say this: if you're the kind of person that would really like a Ocarina of Time PC port, pay attention to this news, because when it goes up, it's going to be up for a moment, and then it will be erased from the internet.
Oh yeah, it'll be a hot flash in the pan.
And please don't come in our Discord and beg us to give you copies.
No, we won't have it.
We aren't doing that.
Yeah, even if we did have it, we don't have it.
When the Mario thing happened,
we had a little bit of that.
We had a little bit of a we have such a tiny server,
right.
You know. We had like several people coming like, hey, can you send me a copy? And I'm like, I will not distribute Nintendo unauthorized. I'm absolute. That's a surefire way to get my life shut down.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. DC Douglas, the voice actor for Wesker, broke NDA on a live stream to reveal that the RE4 remake is real and that he's in it.
That's smart.
That seems great. A great career move. So that seems like.
I do love DC Douglas. I don't know if you've followed him at all, but he is not afraid to record the dumbest shit in Wesker's voice.
Well, that's good. I feel like if I was a voice actor, I wouldn't be able to avoid it either.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There are so many clips online of him just saying the stupidest shit in Wesker's voice, and it's beautiful. I love it.
Sony patent reveals DualShock mobile controller that definitely doesn't look exactly like a Switch.
Right.
Definitely not a Switch there.
Yeah, it looks like it's probably Razer Kishi-like that you just put a phone in the middle of.
Yeah, I don't know why Sony would be patenting this when they could easily... Please, Sony, please just give this to a company that can do it right.
Right.
Please.
Yeah, I think what they're looking for is they want an official mobile controller as they push PlayStation Now and Remote Play more than they have in the past.
Yeah.
Especially now that cloud services
more than almost none?
Exactly. Now that all these other cloud services are getting some traction, Sony doesn't.
Yeah.
It's weird that Sony is getting left behind on this when they had PlayStation Now so early.
They had it forever. It's funny because Microsoft is marketing Game Pass well, and xCloud streaming well, or I guess now they call it Game Pass streaming, whatever it's called. They're marketing it well, and really, they're just now dipping their toes in. Sony's just been in the deep end over there, like, why does anyone like us?
Right. Well,
nobody knows. About
another problem with PlayStation Now was for a long time it was exclusively available on PS4, PS Vita, and Sony Bravia televisions. That was your only option.
Bravia.
And I think they briefly made it available on Sony Xperia handsets, the phones. And now it looks like they're about to start making it more widely available, which would have been a good idea 5 years ago. But because they bought Gaikai and they also bought OnLive. They own all these companies that specialize in exactly cloud gaming,
Saturn,
right? So it is good that they are considering pursuing that a little more.
Yeah. Xbox Series S was highest selling console. Was that just for the month of November, or
for the Black Friday holiday,
for the holiday
sales period.
Sales rush? It turns out having it on the shelves means you're going to sell more.
Weird.
I'm fucking flabbergasted.
Yeah, so
that works.
They think that maybe the scalpers weren't buying them as quickly because they still have leftover Series S's from previous times the scalpers bought them.
Yeah.
And because of that, humans were able to buy them.
Now, I followed the scalper thing pretty close when it was starting, and I've been kind of checking in on it, and I don't remember where I heard it, so I can't say that it is definitive or even true. But at the time, I heard from what I considered a reliable and honest source that they have good data saying that really scalpers are only buying up a small percentage of them, and that it is just very high demand to do,
Possibly.
Which isn't
that could be true.
Which still, I mean, it's still ridiculous.
Right.
Because I mean, if like you have 1,000 PS5s in a warehouse, like they've made many, many, many thousands of PS5s.
Right.
Like it's a drop in a large bucket. But it's unfortunate that it's going on at all.
Right.
But yeah, I love that. Microsoft got it with the Series S. I like that.
I also read that the Series S and X and the PS5 have both already outsold the lifetime sales of the Wii U.
Oh, really? That's not shocking at all.
Not at all.
I think I've outsold the lifetime sales of the Wii U. Like,
you're not even selling anything.
I know. It's not. It's shocking, really. Indie dev Eyeballistic pitching an HD Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3 remake to Warner Brothers again.
Yeah, I don't know if you followed any of the saga or not, but it's
no.
So years ago, back when I think it was Mortal Kombat 9 or 10 was about to come out, Warner had outsourced an HD remake of the first 3 Mortal Kombat games, and they even got so far as completely reshooting all the live action the footage that they used to animate the games. They basically got all new actors, they put them all in the same old costumes, and they shot everything that was shot for the original game so that they could reanimate it in the original style, but with brand new, higher resolution images, right?
Yeah.
And they got pretty far in that process when Warner just unceremoniously canceled it, handed it off to another company, and told them, don't, just emulate it. It's fine. Just emulate the original games. Don't need to upgrade anything. And they made the Mortal Kombat arcade collection for the Xbox 360 and PS3 and Steam.
Yeah.
And then several years later, this company, Eyeballistic, this indie dev, which is made up of just diehard fighting game fans who made mods for fighting games, they put together this pitch for an HD remaster, and they pitched it to Warner, and apparently somebody from Warner saw it and was like, "That's good. You should pitch it to us." And they pitched it, and the people at Warner were like, "No, you're not a real company. We don't do this if you're not a real company." And so they found another company to back them up, somebody that publishes indie games,
right?
And then they pitched it through them, and they're like, no, you have nothing published. You're a nobody company. We don't know who you are. We're not going to do this. and then apparently they licensed it to someone else, and that project got canceled. And so now Eyeballistic is pitching it again, now that they've put even more work into it. And they sent not only to Warner Brothers their pitch, but they sent it to all these different magazines along with video footage of their new version, so that the magazines can report on how good it looks and how dumb Warner Brothers is to inevitably turn this down.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating saga. I don't know that anything will happen from it, but it's fascinating to watch, and I wish them luck. I'm rooting for them. The plucky underdogs trying to get their remake published.
And finally, Steam broke concurrent user record during holiday weekend, carried largely by Halo.
Yeah, in fact, they broke the record twice during the 4-day Thanksgiving weekend.
Which is interesting because Halo ain't even out yet. I mean,
No.
this is the beta.
Yeah, it's just the beta.
Man, that's I mean, good on Halo, right?
Right.
But that's crazy, and we're still coming up on the Steam Winter Sale, where I suspect they're going to break that record again.
Yeah, and apparently Halo also broke a record for most concurrent users of a single title at one point. I think it was quickly rebroken by Team Fortress 2, but for a day or so there, Halo had it.
I love that TF2 is still going and pretty strong. Because like every now and then I just want to play a shooty gun game, and I'm like, TF2 is there for me. Like it's you just,
that game is what, 13 years old now?
I was playing it right after high school, so upwards of 15 years. I couldn't date it exactly, but yeah. Let's get into the topic at hand. This week we're talking top 10 remakes. Which
you already talked about one. You talked about the Pokemon.
I did. I'm going to talk about it again later.
Oh, good.
But so top 10 remakes and remasters. This is just kind of our favorite remakes and remasters.
This is our favorite remakes and remasters that we remembered to list.
Yeah, this is objectively the best remakes ever in order.
Right.
Of
something
to best.
Yeah.
No, it's just there's just stuff we picked. We want to talk about.
Is the first one the best one, or is the last one the best one?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
So again, not an exhaustive list. I'm sure the second we finish recording this, we're both going to be like, oh yeah, what about that one game that we like better than all the games on that list?
Right.
But this was actually a kind of a suspiciously hard list for me to make.
Yeah.
So let's
as soon as I came up with what I decided was my definitive list, and I was like, man, that was hard. I barely thought of those 5. I was like, oh, there's one and another and another, and then suddenly I had a list of like 20 honorable mentions.
Yeah.
So
I had a few on my list that were not remakes. I put them on there and I was like, oh.
Oh wait, that's a game. That's just a game.
My first thought was like, Link Between Worlds, and I was like, well, no, that's really a sequel.
Yeah,
it remakes like portions of it.
It was almost a remake at one point.
And then my next one was the River City Ransom Tokyo Rumble, which not a remake either. It's a sequel.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, shit. Like
that's okay. At one point, I was like, what about Mega Man Legacy Collection? Wait a minute. That's just emulated games.
Not a remake.
Yeah.
I want to start with Ocarina of Time 3D.
Okay, which I already mentioned earlier.
Which you did mention earlier. It came out in North America on the 19th of June in 2011. This was developed by Grezzo, who you may know from Street Pass Garden, which is their most well-known game.
Also the Link's Awakening remake, I believe.
Yeah, but Street Pass Garden, which is pretty much like my second favorite Grezzo game. You grow flowers. It's very fun. I paid money for it.
That is the only Street Pass game I do not play.
Really? That's the one I played the most. You get to grow flowers.
My favorite one is the Haunted Mansion one, and then also the Save Me one. But my favorite is the picture puzzles. I love those.
Oh no, man! I was all about that garden. You get to grow the little flowers and stuff. And
that was the first one I stopped.
That's. I think I might have been on review for it for the website I worked for at the time or something, but I played that one a bunch. I was like, this is actually pretty good. Anyway, Ocarina of Time 3D is what I want to talk about.
Right, I've heard of that one.
This is the 3DS remake of Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time,
which was dang near a launch title for the 3DS, wasn't it?
It was awful close.
Yeah,
awful, gosh darn close. 3DS came out. Let me see here. early 2011. This was later 2011. So we would consider it launch window, by modern hardware launch standards.
Yeah, modern standards are if it came out within the first 5 years of the console. It's basically launch window.
You're good. I was staunchly in college when this came out, and I had very good memories of Ocarina of Time, but I could not return to it. Yeah. Every time I try to return to it, it just... I know people love that game, and it's been rated greatest game of all time many, many times, and even recently.
Yeah.
But I just have trouble going back to it. It just feels really dated. It looks really dated. It just feels old.
Yes.
And Ocarina 3D adds, just enough.
Yeah.
It's a graphical upgrade. The biggest improvement for me was the quality of life of having your inventory touch accessible on the bottom screen. That made such a huge difference in being able to quickly change boots.
Yeah, that was the one for me.
Oh man, that was
so nice.
I've gone back to original Ocarina since then and been in like areas like the Water Temple where you're like, oh my god. And speaking of the Water Temple, they color coded it.
Yes.
So that it was, still the same temple, but slightly less easy to get turned around in. Right. Yeah. And I just love this version of the game. I think it's great. They added these little things you stick your head in, and they give you tips on like what you should be doing next.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people kind of scoff at that sort of stuff, but I like the ability to play a game without a guide if I can. And I don't have Ocarina of Time memorized whatsoever. So there are a lot of points in the game where I'm like, oh shoot, where do I need to be going at? And those things would tell you. And I want to say they would play like little video clips where they would show you where you needed to be.
Yep.
And I loved having that, especially on handheld game where I was at college. I'd be playing before a class and then flip it back open, be in the middle of something, and be like, shit, where was I even going? And it made it a game that I was able to play in very short bursts.
Right.
And the first time I ever completed Ocarina of Time was the 3D remake.
Oh wow.
I never when like the original came out, what, 98?
98, yeah.
So I was 10. And so the game was just a little hard for me. Because it doesn't feel this way anymore. But at the time, the combat in Ocarina was hard. I had a hard time with it, like 3D targeting, and you had to like do the strafing back and forth kind of, and then there was like jump maneuvers. Like it felt much more complex than press the button and swing the sword, or hold the button and swing the sword.
Right.
And so I was not good enough to complete the game. Right. This is just all around a fantastic remake of the game. I vastly prefer this to the original these days. I know that we joke about me wanting to play everything handheld and you wanting to play everything on TV, but I would love to see like a Switch port of this.
You're right.
Even though it would kind of by necessity have to give up the accessibility of the touch.
True.
Inventory.
But I feel like they could. There are other options they could use.
They could have like quick mapping on the D-pad because the game didn't use the D-pad.
Or the right analog stick, it didn't use that.
Yeah, I think they could do it. I would love to see it. And I was so stoked on this that I excitedly bought Majora's Mask.
Yeah, me too.
And I went all in on Majora's. I bought like the hardcover premium edition guide. I was like, oh hell yeah. And I never really played Majora as a kid. Like it came out and I remember seeing my brother playing it and being like, this one seems kind of weird and just sort of not being interested. Mm-hmm. I want to say at the time I was really into Space Station Silicon Valley, so I was busy.
Yeah.
And so I had never really played Majora, and I learned that I don't like Majora. I mean, whatsoever. And I think I know why, and it is that because I talked to people that are like, oh, Majora's the best one ever made in those,
right.
And I was like, what is it that makes it so good to you? Because to me, I'm following this guide and it's just a list of the same chores to do over and over and over. And every time the list gets longer and they go, oh, you can't play Majora with a guide. And then I realized what they like about it is they like the puzzle of trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, I don't want that.
the satisfaction that comes from solving that puzzle, of doing everything in the right order on successive days and getting it all figured out. And then I hear the story is very good as well.
Right.
But I could not do that.
Yeah, I love having the puzzles and everything in my games, but puzzles that are based around time management while the clock is ticking, really, that stresses me out. I can't do that. It's always scared me away from Majora.
Yeah. So I absolutely adore Ocarina of Time 3D. I think it's a fantastic version of the game.
Absolutely.
If you're like me and you're like, hey, I like Ocarina, but I kind of have trouble going back to it, absolutely check this version out.
Definitely.
And it was very hard to find physical for a while. It started going crazy high in price, and then they reprinted it
a few times.
Multiple times. So I think I want to say it's still affordable, but I shouldn't say that because what video game is affordable anymore, right? But yeah, absolutely love this game. It was very well received. I maintain that it's the best version of the game to date. I still maintain that.
Yeah, my first choice is going to be the Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yes.
I had to fight myself between this and the Resident Evil 1 remake. But I'm going to give the edge to 2 just because if for no other reason, it's a little easier to approach from a modern perspective for people who are used to modern games.
Yeah.
But originally released back in January of 2019, the faraway time of 2019, before we knew of pandemics. Before
long ago.
Yeah, back when pandemics were just a story event in a zombie game,
right?
Not a thing we all dealt with,
right?
But it's it's a complete remake of the original. It's got maps inspired by the original, but not identical to it. The story has been slightly reimagined, both to fit in better with the story of the later games, and also to give a little more color to some of the characters that are in the game. Also, for some reason, it has these super cheesy flirting scenes between Leon and Claire that are completely unnecessary.
No,
add nothing at all. My least favorite scene is when they are standing in the rain in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, separated by an iron gate, and they just start flirting with each other, and you can actually see a zombie in the background behind one of them, and I'm just like, what are you fucking idiots doing? Like, maybe if I had played that scene when I was a teenager, when I played the original Resident Evil 2,
you'd have been like, this is great.
Yeah, I would have been like, oh, this is such great storytelling. But as an adult, I'm like, what do you fucking idiots get inside? What the fuck are you doing?
What's funny to me is Resident Evil is often sold to me as like so stupid that it's fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
You know, and I only played the demo of Resident Evil 2, and I almost shit my pants like 4 times.
Oh, yeah, the remake, was it the RE2 remake or the RE2 original? Oh, yeah, it's scary as shit. It's great.
And I was like, oh my God! Like, I just shut it down. I was like, Alt F4ing out of it.
It is very scary. I will give it that. They did a good job with that. I wouldn't say it's the scariest game in the series, but it's done incredibly well.
Yeah.
They did get rid of the zapping system that was in the original, which was so you can choose to play as either Leon or Claire, and then after the game is over, you can then play a scenario B as either Leon or Claire. And in the new game, their scenarios overlap a lot, as in you do the exact same things that the other character did for some reason. Like, it's slightly different, but a lot of the same. In the original game, they actually did different things based on the scenario. They would have different objectives. They would encounter different enemies. And one of the things was when they did tread the same ground, you could choose not to pick something up with one character and it would be there for the other character. And they got rid of that, unfortunately.
Oh, well, that's a bummer.
But it gives you the option to play the game with the original PS1 polygon models. And that's fantastic. Any game that, like, the entire world...
So the rest of the world is still normal?
Yes. Like this 4K ready HDR world with these super very disturbing looking lifelike zombies, and then you have PS1 polygon models running around. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
You can also, on the PC version, there's a fan mod that gives it 1000% facial animations. And that's the best way to play the game, because every time they talk, their lips like completely cover their entire face. And if one of them tries to like make a weird face, like they raise their eyebrow, then their eyebrows go completely off of their head. It's beautiful. It's the best way to play any game ever made. And also the best part about the remake, they removed the spiders, which, that's just
Now, is this an option menu toggle spider?
No, they just removed them from the game. Like in the original game, there were these spiders as big as you are that would spit poison at you, which in the original game, I already didn't like them, but, it's PS1 graphics. What are you going to do?
It's whatever.
But I did not want to see them in modern graphics. Unfortunately, they brought them back for the Resident Evil 3 remake because they're bastards, but that's unrelated.
Well, that's good. Yes. I keep hoping someone will make a mod that like makes the zombies not scary.
Another good mod is somebody replaced Mr. X with Thomas the Tank Engine.
I saw that one.
That one's good.
What? If they would replace all blood with confetti, I might be able to do it then. Like if it's still a zombie, but when I shoot it, confetti pops out and it makes like a honking noise.
What if they replace all the zombies with Charizard?
That might be more scary. A big giant fire dragon barreling down on me.
Good point. What if they replace them all with Clefairy?
That would not be scary at all.
Perfect.
Not at all. But speaking of Clefairy,
yes.
My second game is Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. I do want to first kind of extend this to all of the generations of Pokemon remakes. Mm-hmm. Pokemon remakes are in general usually pretty darn good. Yeah. They do have a tendency to not have all of the content. So for people that didn't follow Pokemon, they used to do 2 different versions of the game, and then later a 3rd version of the game that was the, in air quotes, complete version that added new stuff.
Which they stopped doing a while back.
Yeah, they haven't done that since Platinum. Platinum was the last one. Platinum was the last one. And Fire Red and Leaf Green were the first remakes that they did. And these are such great remakes. First of all, because if you've not played the original Pokemon games in a while, they are very archaic feeling these days. They are very simple games and extremely opaque games. They're still fun, but you forget how much has been added in the later Pokemon games. A big one is breeding. The original Pokemon generation, you couldn't breed Pokemon.
Yeah. Dragon Quest Monsters did that first.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing. They stole it from Dragon Quest Monsters.
Right.
And they've added that in Fire Red and Leaf Green. They've upgraded all of the graphics. Obviously, it's in full color, which sounds weird to say as a feature, but it is, and the original was not.
Right.
They allow you to play as a female character. It brought in some kind of GBA advancements. So they had a resume function. Like so many GBA games, you can put them to sleep. It also came
supported
with
the little wireless adapters.
Yeah, it came with the wireless adapter.
Oh, yeah.
Originally, it came with it in the box. This was the first game that started the wireless adapter thing, which was great if you played with other people. I didn't have anyone to play with. But they just add a whole lot to the game to update it so that it feels more in line with the rest of the franchise. And while the Ruby and Sapphire remakes are good remakes of Ruby and Sapphire, if you like Ruby and Sapphire, I would say Diamond and Pearl are very good remakes of Diamond and Pearl if you like those. I would also say that they're not quite as necessary as remakes of Red and Blue were.
What about Gold and Silver?
The Gold and Silver remakes, also very good remakes. But again, I don't feel like they were as necessary. I feel like Red and Blue is like, man, hard to go back to. I've gone back to Pokemon Silver and Gold several times, and it's a little older, but it's still pretty easy to go back to. But Red and Blue, like I get like 2 gym badges in, and I'm like, I'm done. My God, it's so slow and archaic, and I just can't get through it. It makes me want to play newer Pokemon games, So it really does do a lot to bring the game up to, and I would say modern, but to 2004 standards, which is when it came out. It was September 9th, 2004 in North America. And it was a super duper popular version of the game. It sold crazy well because of course it did. It did also let you trade back and forth with, you could interact with Ruby and Sapphire in some way. I don't remember how. But it connected to Pokemon Coliseum. It connected to Ruby and Sapphire. Like it really was like a part of its generation of Pokemon games. instead of just being like, yeah, we remade them, but they're not going to talk to any of the new Pokemon stuff, right? It's its own separate thing. And it really did kind of set a super duper high bar for Pokemon remakes, which I would say they've maintained.
Nice.
And I recommend it a lot to people that are like, hey, I never really played a Pokemon game. I don't really want to do the new ones. Because for whatever reason, which one of the old ones should I play? And I'm always like, Fire Red, Leaf Green. That's where you need to start. Because it's the beginning and it still plays great. It's a great version of the game.
Nice.
Fire Red, Leaf Green. What do you got?
So my next one's going to be Dragon Quest 3. Which not the one that's about to come out.
Okay, I was preemptively sat and it's like Dragon Quest 3 best game ever, best remake ever. What is it? What is it that shitty publication was? It was like Ultimate Game of All Time.
I don't remember.
They gave it to Dark Souls and it was like Ultimate.
Yeah, it was shit.
Wasn't it Ultimate Game of All Time?
I think it was. It was something like that. It was
like the golden joysticks, and they're like most ultimate game of all time, Dark Souls.
Yeah, best game ever made. Everyone loves it.
Man, I mean, Dark Souls is good, but better than Super Mario Brothers 3?
Right.
Holy shit! Better than like Final Fantasy 7? Better than better than Half-Life 2?
There's a few different genres of games.
Ultimate game. Well, it doesn't matter because it's the ultimate game.
But anyway, so Dragon Quest 3.
Yes.
So I'm specifically singling out the Super Famicom version because every version since then has been based on it. So the original game came out in 1988, and this remake came out 8 years later in December of 96. Again, that's December of 1996, and it came out on the Super Famicom.
Yep.
That's, I believe, 3 months before the release of Final Fantasy 7.
Man,
if I remember right. So it might have been 4 or 5 months actually. So anyway, it's a very late Super Nintendo game.
You don't say.
And you can tell by looking at it, it looks gorgeous for Super Nintendo. They did completely remake the game, added in new story elements. There's a whole new prologue intro sequence. There's new jobs that you can get. There's new bonus dungeons, new mini games. It looks incredible. All the art has been completely redrawn. All the enemies are animated now, so that when they attack you, they have little animations they play. It's just done incredibly well. The soundtrack was completely redone by Sugiyama, and it matches the orchestral soundtrack as far as composition, and it gets pretty close to it, as close as the Super NES's sound chip can handle anyway. And so it's just an excellent port of the game. They did later port that version to Game Boy Color and add a couple of extra mini games, and I believe an extra bonus dungeon as well. But they downgraded a lot of stuff in the process just because the Game Boy Color is not as powerful as a Super Nintendo.
It's not going to match a late era Super Nintendo game.
Right. And in the recent re-release on Switch and PS4 and 3DS and mobile devices, is based on the graphics of the Super NES version, but it also loses the mini games, and it took away the animation from the enemies. So even though it is on significantly more powerful hardware, it has lost a lot of the features of the Super NES version. So when I choose which version of Dragon Quest 3 to play, I always find myself wanting to gravitate towards the Super NES version just because of all the little upgrades and quality of life features. It added the interact button that we see in modern Dragon Quest games that was not super common at the time. It added the remember spell where you could memorize any text that you see in the game and then recall it at any point later in the future, so that if somebody gives you some obtuse bullshit clue somewhere that you know you're going to have to use later in a dungeon, you just cast remember, and then when you get into the dungeon, you cast recall, and it'll tell you what it was. Which,
that's one of those things where I feel like people would be shitty and be like, well, just fucking write it down. And it's like, I don't want to stop playing my game to write shit down.
Exactly.
I don't want to stop to read a guide if I don't have to. I want to play the game.
Yeah.
If I have to do those things, I will.
Right. So yeah, it just a lot of nice quality of life features and a lot of nice actual game upgrades. So
yeah,
obviously it didn't come out over here originally, but there are a few different fan translations now, and at least one of them is complete and playable and worth checking out.
Do we know what version the upcoming remake is going to be based on?
It is complete from the ground up remake because
really?
Because
okay,
yeah, they're building it in the Octopath Traveler engine.
Yeah. Which is exciting. I'm excited for a job system game in that engine.
Yeah, so yeah, for anybody who hasn't played the original Dragon Quest III, it is a job class game where only one character is defined by the story, and anyone else in your party, you can just create them at your whim and then dismiss them and create all new characters if you want to, and then change their job halfway through the game repeatedly if you want to make them just ludicrously overpowered. And I'm so stoked to see what they do with all that in the new upgrade. I hope they don't ruin things.
Yeah. My next one is a game we've talked a lot about, which is Tactics Ogre. Let us cling together. Yes, that's where it comes from. Yeah. We did a whole episode on this one. So if you want to hear more about it, please go listen to that episode. Right. But this released in North America February 15th, 2011. Mm-hmm. It is a remake of the Super Famicom Tactics Ogre game.
Right.
And it is just, oh God, it's just so good. It is just such a good strategy RPG. And I'm not going to go into all of the details here because, again, did a whole episode on it. It wasn't even that long ago. I want to say it was in the last year.
Oh, I want to say it was longer ago than that.
Oh, no. But it adds the chariot system, which lets you go back up to 50 turns, which makes the game instantly accessible without the need to rebalance it.
Yeah.
Because the thing about strategy RPGs is when they're too easy, they're kind of not fun. Right. You know, you want to have that little bit of puzzly challenge of like, how do I, tackle this? Mm-hmm. But they're also traditionally very unforgiving, where you'll shoot your own people in the back of the head with an arrow because you forgot or whatever. And having the chariot system gives you instant granular difficulty accessibility without having to necessarily give you difficulty options.
Right.
It also gives you the world system, which is great for people like me. So the game has a huge branching plot, and I think you have to finish the game to unlock the world system. Mm-hmm. But once you have, you can go back to any major branching plot point, and it shows it to you on this big map. Mm-hmm. And you can make the other decision and follow the plot through there.
Yeah.
As much or as little as you want. Maybe you just want to see what happens after that one decision. Then you want to jump to a different part in the tree and play that out. And it keeps you from having to play the game over and over and over again, which I would never do in a million billion years just to see the story. I'd just go look it up on Wikipedia.
Right.
But the world system just makes it so much more accessible and interesting. It is a massively entertaining SRPG. Oh, yeah. It is very good looking. It's extremely deep. It's very fun. It's very accessible. Do what?
I was going to say they did a much better job on that remake than they did on the FF Tactics remake on the same system.
Oh, yeah. War of the Lions wasn't bad.
No, but man, did it suffer from some issues on PSP.
Yeah, I'll take Tactics Advance over that one.
Oh, yeah.
So all this to say that I know that I feel like I talk frequently about strategy RPGs because I like them a lot.
Yeah.
For anyone that's like, hey, what's a strategy RPG I should start with? I see a lot of people recommend Final Fantasy Tactics. I would recommend Tactics Ogre on PSP years before I would recommend Final Fantasy Tactics on PS1. Tactics is such a less forgiving game. It is so much more difficult.
Yeah.
And having that leeway that Tactics Ogre gives you just makes it makes it so much more accessible. Like it is my number one recommendation if you're like, hey, I want to play a strategy RPG. The Tactics Ogre remake is what you need to play. It is the best one of them that I've played to date.
Right. By the way, it was 76 episodes ago.
Oh my God, that's like a whole run of a different podcast ago.
Yeah, that was last summer we did that episode.
Done too many of these.
The first summer of COVID.
Let's just start going backward in numbers. Can we just do that? Because I feel like in a few years when we're like, episode 753, it's just going to be meaningless.
Yeah.
I'm going to quit putting numbers on it is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, we'll just put the date on there instead.
No, that's gonna make me sad too. I'm just gonna take it off. I'm just gonna take it all off. What's your third pick?
Next, I'm gonna do Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap.
Oh, what a good game! This one almost made my list. Yeah,
we've also talked to this one on the show quite a bit, especially back when it first came out. Back when I forced you to play it because of how fucking good it was. Oh man,
I feel like you didn't. I feel like I wanted to play it.
You did. Yeah, I basically just suggested it heavily at you, and you're like, "Yeah, I'll play that."
I think you gave me a copy. Did you give me a copy?
I
think you're just like, "Here, you have to play it now, or you're hurting my feelings."
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, because I was such a fan of the original, which I first played on the TurboGrafx, where it is wrong and everything looks weird.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the version that is still familiar to me.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, based on the Master System version. But it does such a beautiful job. One, it's got all this gorgeous hand-drawn animated art, which just looks incredible. It's got a recomposed soundtrack from some of the original composers. It lets you change between the original graphics and the original sound and the new graphics and the new sound at whim, just by clicking a button.
I love that. We were so stoked on that feature.
Yeah. Right.
We were like, literally every remake needs this ever.
Yes.
It's the greatest feature.
And I think maybe one remake has done that since then, if I remember right. And I can't remember what it is.
Something else has, yeah. But like, as people that really like classic games, sometimes you want to see the old pixel art. You know, you want to jump back and forth, and it's nice to have that option.
Right. And it didn't change a lot about the original game. It did change some things, but not a ton. But it didn't really need to. It kind of proved that the original game still works.
Yeah.
With very few changes, and I appreciate that. It just such a good remake. Absolutely worth trying, even if you've never played a Wonder Boy game before. It is worth.
Which I hadn't.
Yeah, it is worth trying out Dragon's Trap. It's just such a great remake that it will give you appreciation for the earlier games in the series.
Yeah. My fourth pick here is Yakuza Kiwami, which was released worldwide between 2017 and 2010 on various platforms.
2020.
2020. It went back in time and released in 2010.
That's good.
2017 to 2020 across the various platforms it's on. It is a remake of the original PS2 Yakuza game.
Right.
Remade entirely from the ground up. It uses the Yakuza 0 engine as well as a slightly modified version of the combat system.
Yep.
And it started the Retro Warriors Yakuza craze, where we were all just nuts for Yakuza for like a year.
Well, I didn't get on that until Like a Dragon came out, and then I went back and played this because Like a Dragon came out.
Were you that late on the train?
Yeah, it was January of this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, Yakuza Kwame. It's funny. I played Zero. I bought Zero on PS4 when it came out, the collector's edition. I don't know why. I I did it. I still have a little Yakuza card holder with little cards for all of the clubs in the game.
Nice.
Because I sold the game. Like, I played it and I was like, I don't like that. Like, I didn't connect with the characters. Because Zero really it because we've talked about this a lot when we were playing a lot of Yakuza. We got lots of questions of, hey, should I start with Zero or Kiwami? And a lot of the answers I heard were either one is good. I maintain that Kiwami is a better starting point than Zero. I feel like Zero feels a little more advanced and a little deeper than Kiwami, even though it came first.
Right.
And I also feel like in Zero, I went into these characters that were kind of boring. And they didn't really get good for a little bit. And I didn't appreciate that journey because I didn't know where they were going to end up. Like, I feel like the plot of Zero, the beginning leg of it, really wants you to appreciate who these people are and that this is their origin.
Right.
And so I didn't, and I picked Zero up when it came out on PS4. I played it for like an hour or two and I was like, I don't know, it's kind of boring. And I turned it off. And then Kiwami, I got into, I want to say last November.
Yeah, because it was a few months before I started playing it.
Yeah, it was last November I got into it, and I got into it, and then I fell out of it for a few weeks because something else happened, or the holidays, I don't know, and then I got back into it, and then just kind of fired through.
Yeah, you got back into it because I had mentioned that I was playing it, and you were like, why are you playing Yakuza?
It did. I was like, Saturn, that's a beat 'em up. You know that, right? You're beating guys up.
Right.
it still is weird to me. Still weird to me.
Having played the entire series now, even though it is obviously a beat 'em up, it is also very obviously a JRPG. The entire franchise.
Well, yeah, you could say the same about the Kunio games.
Exactly.
You know?
I agree.
Like,
It is.
You're not supposed to agree. You're supposed to argue, Saturn. It's the internet.
My bad. You is wrong and stupid.
It's supposed to be like, how could you think that?
No, I agree. They do have inspiration from both genres, and obviously, by the time they got to Yakuza 7, they just embraced it and became a JRPG.
Right,
but
unfortunately.
I agree. I also think that's unfortunate. As a JRPG fan, I'm like, man, you guys were better when you were still a beat 'em up.
What a weird fucking franchise that you're like, yeah, the beat 'em ups are better than the JRPG.
Yeah.
For you to maintain that stance is crazy pants backward town to me. Anyway, Yakuza Kwame is, in my opinion, the best place to start with the Yakuza games. It's a very good remake. I mean, it's a full ground up like remake.
Oh, yeah.
It's in the new engine. Like it's
Right.
it's
but it
real
still
good.
retells the story of the original, but without the original terrible localization.
Oh, the original was. I heard that the original voice acting was bad. The English voice acting, and maybe the Japanese was too. I don't know. And I went back to listen to it, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
But it does have Mark Hamill as Majima.
Oh my god!
And also, whoever localized the PS2 version felt that the word "fuck" needed to be in every sentence. Which, don't get me wrong, I use that word a lot too. But calm down, guys.
Was it Kiwami 1 where early in the game there's that scene where Kiryu kicks that door down and kicks that door open and just flings that guy across the room and he goes,
I can't remember if it's Kiwami 1 or Kiwami 2, but it's in one of those.
I still think about that scene a lot. Like I'll be doing dishes and I'll be like,
That's a good bit.
Such a fun game. Such a fun game.
A lot of fun.
What's your fourth pick?
Ys 3, The Oath in Felghana, which came out on PC in Japan back in 2005. It didn't make it to international release until the PSP version in 2010.
Is this the first PSP Ys game?
No.
Or was 7 the first?
No.
What was the first?
Ys 6 got a PSP port way back in 2006.
Oh, goodness. All right.
But
then Felghana and 7 came out near each other, didn't they?
Yes, they came out close to one another. I want to say it was 7, then Felghana, then 1 and 2.
I just remember them being on the shelf at the same time and me being at the store like, which one do I get?
Yeah, it was within a year and a half or so that they released all 3 of those on PSP. In the West, anyway. In Japan, I think they all had at least a year between them.
Right.
But yeah, so we got it in 2010, and then there was also a worldwide PC release in 2012 that was just a port of the 7-year-old Japanese version at that point. But yeah, it's a complete remake of Ys 3, which if you're not familiar with Ys, they kind of went the Zelda route with Ys 3. It went the same way that Zelda 2 went, where they had this overhead action RPG series, and they were like, but what if it's a hard as nails side scroller now?
Right.
And then Ys 3 was just a hard as nails side scroller in much the same way that Zelda 2 is a hard as nails side scroller.
Yeah.
And because of that, it had been the black sheep of the series for a very long time. And whenever people would talk about the series, they'd be like, oh, it's all great. Maybe not Ys 3. It's okay, but it's not great. And suddenly we have this complete remake of the game using the game engine from Ys 6. And man, did they do a great job remaking it. Like the whole game is just beautifully done. They did rearrange the original music from Ys 3. And because you're now in these full 3D environments, it felt weird hearing this music from an old 2D game I played in the early 90s and this really nice action RPG in 2012. But man, is it done well. Also, the new PC version, the one that came out in 2012 in Western territories, added support for the original Japanese soundtracks from the NEC PC-88. As well as new voice acting. The game never had voice acting in Japan, and they added voice acting to the localization. And I want to say that they have since added Japanese voice acting as well, which they had to ask Falcom to record because they never had recorded voice acting for the game. So, but it's an excellent remaster. In fact, I would say it's one of the best games in the franchise. If you've not played Ys and you are interested in an action RPG, this is probably one of the ones to look at.
What if I played Ys 7 and I was like, it's fine, but I don't love it?
I'd still play this because I also am not a huge fan of Ys 7.
That was my first Ys game.
That's unfortunate.
I was like, yeah, give me that Wise 7. And I play. It was fine. It felt very Diablo-y to me.
That's fair. I can see that.
Which I liked, but I was like, I'd rather just go play Diablo.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, the other Ys games prior to 7 were not very Diablo-y. They were much more Zelda-y, I would say. Like Zelda meets hardcore JRPG.
Yeah.
You only control a single character, like in Zelda, and it is an action style adventure game, like in Zelda.
So it's just like that Zelda JRPG,
right? But there's a leveling system and there's equipment and all that kind of stuff, more like a JRPG. So.
My fifth pick is Metroid Zero Mission.
Yes.
This was the first one that went down on the list, and this is one that I put up there in necessity with like Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Probably more. This is probably, I would say, the most necessary remake on the list.
Yeah.
This came out February 9th, 2004 on GBA, January 14th, 2016 on the Wii U Virtual Console. It is a full ground-up remake of the original Metroid. And it adds
so well.
It has a ton of stuff. It uses the engine they used for Metroid Fusion. And was originally going to be a GBA remake of Super Metroid.
Right.
And they ended up doing the original. It adds a whole area
so glad
called
they chose to do this instead of Super Metroid.
Oh, me too. It adds a whole area called Chozodia, which really sounds like what a school bully calls a table full of nerds.
Look at Chozodia over here.
Why don't you go sit over there in Chozodia with all the chodes? I don't know why I thought of that when I was writing that. It includes cinematics, new plot details, new items. Right. It adds difficulty options. Hello, Metroid Dread. There are difficulty options in this game.
Right.
It is, for my money, the best feeling Metroid game to date. It feels the best. Just the gameplay, the snappiness, the responsiveness. It feels just great to play.
I'd back you up on that.
And
excellent.
A fantastic looking GBA game.
Oh yeah,
just extremely good looking GBA game. I didn't grow up with Super Metroid, so for me this was the best Metroid. I was like, this is hands down the best Metroid. And I know there's a lot of discourse back and forth of which is better, Zero Mission or Super Metroid.
Right.
But this was also the first Metroid I played after what was it? So I played Prime, and I was like, oh, I know there's other Metroid games, aren't there? And I go and I find the NES Metroid on eBay.
Oh no!
And I get my mom to buy it for me. And so I'm around like 15 whenever this is all going on. And then I play it and I'm like, this is bad. This is a bad game. And I kept trying, and I was like, finally, I was like, I can't make it through this game. I see what they're trying to do. It's cool, but I'm just,
it's so hard, unfair, and mean.
Then later I got Zero Mission, and it was not only was it exciting because it's just a great game,
right?
But it's a great remake of a game that needed it just so bad.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like it adds a level of completion to the Metroid series, which is really nice. In making kind of the least playable one sort of more playable by modern standards.
Right.
Just all around, absolutely
fantastic game.
Fantastic. I'm willing to put it up there in my echelon of what I would call flawless games.
Yeah.
It is. I can't think of any single gripe I have about Metroid Zero Mission.
I would say that taken history into context and looking at it when it was released, I might still edge that Super Metroid is a better game. But if you're just comparing them apples to apples and not factoring that in, I'd probably agree that Zero Mission is a better game.
Right. That's what we call design inflation. You have to account for design inflation.
Right.
Over the years. There's not a, no, I feel like Zero Mission is up there with like Mega Man X for me, and like games that I would say that's a perfect game. Nice. There's nothing they could do in my eyes to improve that experience, except maybe release it on more platforms would be great.
Or include a crisp $100 bill with every copy of the game.
I would also be in favor of that. Yeah, although that would make it harder to find, so maybe I would not be in favor of that. Scalpers would love that.
Shit.
You see it all over eBay. Metroid Zero Mission, $29.99. Buy it now. $100 bill removed.
Yeah, missing $100 bill.
Yeah. What's your final choice here?
So this is cheating.
It is.
It had to be said. Is Super Mario All-Stars.
Now this is controversial because
really?
for people, I feel like it is.
No, they're wrong.
For like old school Mario purists, a lot of people really prefer the original releases, and they do not like the All-Star releases because it slightly changes some of the physics.
Well, they're wrong. So this was a excellent collection released back in April of 93, and then they re-released it as if it was a current game in December of 2010 for the Wii.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah.
It was a Super Nintendo ROM on a disc for like $40.
$50.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But it came with a book.
Yep. Came with a fucking book.
Yeah. So, again, it's a collection of the 4 NES Super Mario Brothers games. So you have Super Mario Brothers, the Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2, the Western Super Mario Brothers 2, and Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, the physics are slightly off, but not enough to change the gameplay in a drastic way. Like, people who are speedrunners are going to notice it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. People who are just diehard enthusiasts will notice it. I noticed it back when I first played the game because of how much I played the originals.
Right.
But it didn't change the physics to a point that I couldn't still use the exact same gameplay and strategies that I used originally. I just had to slightly adjust things.
Let me ask you this. As far as specifically Mario 3, would you say this is a better remake of Mario 3, or the GBA version is a better remake of Mario 3?
If we're just looking at that one game, I would probably say the GBA version, but only because it took this game as its base. So it's just this game upgraded.
Yeah.
But yeah, when this came out, this was mind-blowing, revolutionary. They took an NES game and made it a Super NES game, and they fit 4 of them on one cart. It was absolutely incredible.
And they added saves.
You're right.
Multiple save slots.
Yes, the whole thing just blew my whole damn mind open. Yeah. Young me thought this was the most exciting thing to ever happen to video games. And I was like, they'll just keep doing this for all the other games, then I won't need my Nintendo anymore because everything will be on Super Nintendo. I just have to wait for literally every other game to get upgraded because there's no way that they could do something better than Super Nintendo. So they're just going to keep doing this forever.
To be fair, they're doing that with Switch right now. They can't make anything that's going to sell better.
Yeah.
So they're just going to put everything on Switch.
Right.
Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, here it comes. Pokemon Diamond Pearl, you got it. Whatever you want. Oh, Wii U games? Sure, all of them done.
Earthbound? No. No,
not that one. Just calm down.
I'll skip that.
Calm down. Licensing, something.
There's
go
no
away.
license. Anyway. So that I even though it's kind of a cheat since it is 4 games, it was such a major thing when it released that I feel like it absolutely has to make this list. So Mario All-Stars.
Yeah. Let's do some honorable mentions before we get out of here. Well, not get out of here, record the next episode.
Yeah.
The first up on this list, you have the Finest Fantasy for Advance, which is the Final Fantasy games remade on Game Boy Advance.
Yep.
And I almost put one of these, but I ran into an issue, which was one, I don't know that they're better than the Pixel remasters, because those are good versions.
Good.
And I also couldn't pick one.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to pick Dawn of Souls because 50% of that cartridge sucks. Yeah. So I don't want to put it on best.
Right.
But then also, these were the first times I played any of these games.
Right.
So I have so much love for the GBA versions that I don't know that I can get a good perspective on whether or not they are the best remakes of their respective games.
I don't know that they are the best versions of their games, but they, at the time, they may have been the best versions. They were pretty massive upgrades from the originals. They added tons of good, necessary quality of life upgrades. If you haven't played the earliest Final Fantasy games. These days, I might lean towards the pixel remasters, even though they remove a lot of the new features that were in the advanced games. Just because I don't know that those features were necessary so much as the good remake of the original games was necessary.
True.
And the pixel remasters have that because they're mostly based on the Game Boy games.
True.
But at the time, these were excellent. And also, I would lump in the 20th anniversary remasters, which were the PSP remasters of 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And also the FF4 remaster on PSP. So there's been so many.
Oh, yeah. Forget
Final
about
Fantasy
that FF4.
Right?
That was so good on PSP. Man.
There's been so many good Final Fantasy remasters over the years that they are worth mentioning, even if they didn't quite make our lists.
I think the reason they didn't make our list is probably because none of them is like really dramatically the best version.
Yeah, that's a big problem that I have is of all those releases, all of them I have to give a caveat. It's like, man, the PSP version of FF4 is amazing. The graphics are wonky.
Or it's good, but the music is compressed. Or there's these weird things that make it where it's like, yeah. Whenever someone's like, hey, which version of any Final Fantasy game should I play? It's always like, well, hold on. Well, let's talk for a little bit.
Yeah. Sit down and now put your phone away. No, you got to pay attention now.
How do you spell Phoenix down? Okay. Would you be offended if it was different? Okay. Well, we have the Dragon Quest Game Boy Color, DS, and 3DS, and mobile ports, which almost made my list. I'm sure you struggled not to just make your whole list Dragon Quest.
No, I decided I was only going to pick one, and as soon as I decided that, it was very easy to choose which one.
Really?
But all of the remasters have been good. There was also the Super Famicom remasters of 1 and 2, which for a very long time would have been on this list for me if it weren't for the other remasters of those same games on other systems. So.
Right. We've got the 2002 Resident Evil, which was the GameCube one.
Yes.
Which was very well received. I assume it was a good game. Absolutely. I was too scared to notice.
Yeah, it's very good. Because they still went with the pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D characters, which by the time they got to the GameCube, they absolutely did not need to do that.
Yeah, nobody was doing that.
Yeah, the system was powerful enough to handle better than that. But because they still did, they were able to make the character models ridiculously high polygon counts for the GameCube because they weren't rendering the environment at all. Because everything was pre-rendered backgrounds.
Yeah.
Because of that, it makes the game look way better than how a GameCube game should look. And it's allowed its graphics to really hold up over the years to where the recent HD remaster of that same game that's on all the current systems, even though it is better, it is obviously better because it's 1080p. If you're really, without looking at them side by side, you might not notice how much better it is because of how good the GameCube version looked. It's just excellent version.
Let's talk Zelda. And I noticed that there's a game missing from this list because it was going to be on my list.
Oh.
And I forgot to put it on my list, and then it got bumped for something else. I don't remember. I think Yakuza bumped it. And now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I could go either way because the remaster of Wind Waker, HD on Wii U, I would say was very much a necessary remake of that game.
Yeah, it did trim a lot of the fat there.
That game was all gristle, and they took a lot of that out. What a fantastic version of that game. Really loved Wind Waker HD a lot. Absolutely adore that remake. Also, Twilight Princess HD is a good version. There's the Link's Awakening remaster, which would have made my list also, but I had a little bit of issues with it.
Right.
When I'm putting games like Zero Mission on a list, it's hard to put something like Link's Awakening remaster next to it and be like, 15 FPS is fine. It's difficult. Skyward Sword, I don't think either of us has played the remake.
No.
It could or could not be on the list, depending on how much of the gristle they trimmed off of that one.
Which, from what I've heard, they did a good job of cleaning it up. Also, I hear that the controls have mapped pretty well to a standard controller. So that I am interested in revisiting Skyward Sword at some point, just not today.
Christian Whitehead's remakes of Sonic CD and Sonic 1 and 2, which I would call definitive versions of those games easily. The Crash and Spyro collections, if you like Crash or Spyro, then they're very good remakes. The Tony Hawk's Pro Skater remakes are pretty good remakes of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
I was just going based on what you guys said when you first got it. You seemed to really enjoy it.
I really enjoyed it, but I still had problems with it, and there were problems that they didn't fix. It like I had difficulty with the multiplayer and getting that working. Just kind of some weird goofiness.
Right.
Souring what would otherwise be a really good remake. And I still maintain, like, if you like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, great remakes. If you can stomach buying a game from that company right now, then very well done remakes.
Or just get it used
by Vicarious Visions.
Then they're not getting any extra money off of you.
Yeah, and unfortunately published by Activision.
Yeah, it's
but Vicarious Visions did a very good job on it.
Indeed.
And I applaud their efforts.
Yeah.
The Mega Man PSP games,
which we talked about not that long ago.
Maverick Hunter X would be, I forgot about it when I was making my list. That would oof. Oh, the viral mode is so good.
Yeah.
The Wily Wars, which was the Mega Man remake / compilation.
Which is weird, and that one's also controversial. Like you said about All Stars, a lot of people do not like the gameplay tweaks and Wily Wars. So I would say go into that one with an open mind. If you've already played the NES originals, it'll be like seeing a weird alternate version of your childhood. But there is still something interesting there, at least, to look at.
Yeah. ActRaiser Renaissance, which we just did a whole episode on, which I think we were kind of ambivalent on in the end, all averaged out, highs and lows. But I think also I'd still say it's a very good remake of the game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For sure. The Namco Arrangement arcade games, which are just a blast. Both Metroid 2 remakes.
Yeah, you got AM2R and you got Samus Returns. I would lean towards AM2R as the better remake, and Samus Returns is the better reimagining.
You have Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition on here. I hear that they've enhanced that game.
That's the fan remake of Silent Hill 2, and oh man, it's so good. The whole game has been redone to work in widescreen. They completely basically rebuilt the PS2 version's game engine on top of the PC game by just decompiling the code of the PC game and then painstakingly trying to recreate the PS2 game out of it. They hand redrew every texture in the game so that it's all 4K ready. And the original PC and Xbox versions had lower resolution, lower frame rate FMVs than the PS2. They extracted the FMVs from the PS2 disc, re-encoded them at a higher frame rate, and put them in this. The whole thing is just such a beautifully, it's obviously a labor of love, and it's worth it if you want to play the game. This is the way to do it.
Yeah. And then we've got upcoming remakes very soon. Hopefully Advance Wars 1 and 2 is as good as it looks, and looks real good.
So. Yeah.
I'm real bummed they've ruined my Christmas. So the Steam Link and Advance Wars 1 and 2 were both delayed. Christmas is ruined. It's over. Forget it. And then we talked about it previously. Dragon Quest 3 2D HD.
Yeah.
Is going to be coming out sometime. Is that early next year?
Who knows? No date. No date.
Yes.
No
Square
definitive platform.
Enix, I forgot.
It will release someday.
We'll see.
Yeah.
As far as final thoughts, these are remakes that you should play, and we support you doing so.
And in 10 years, somebody will go back and remake this episode. It won't be us.
I keep thinking about remaking one of our episodes one day, like as far as like us listening to the old episode and then commenting on it, but I don't know that I could get you to listen to yourself talk for half an hour.
That's going to be rough.
I feel like you'd be like, no, I won't.
Can I have booze?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I tell you what, if you would volunteer to listening to and commentating on our old episode while drunk, I guarantee you patrons would be like, I'll give you extra money right now for that, to hear drunk Saturn like, that guy's an idiot. Like they would, we our Patreon would double. I could almost guarantee it.
Perfect. You know, some of my friends back just after, like when I was in my early to mid 20s, some of my friends told me that when I was drunk, I became the professor because every sentence started with, well, you know.
Yeah.
And then some fact that may or may not be accurate.
Call that a factoid.
I would as soon as I was drunk, I felt the need to educate everyone around me about things that may or may not be true.
Turn into the well, actually, man.
Yeah, basically.
All right. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it.
I don't know if I still do that now. I'm a little older now.
Yeah. I'm also ready for you to go to patreon.com/Retro Warriors, where you can find uncut versions of this show. You can find Talking Wizards. You can find all sorts of, you find After Hours where Pablo and I talk about Pokemon for like 45 minutes. It's a good time. And we hope that you will go there and subscribe to it.
If you like what we're doing anyway. If you don't like what we're doing.
If you don't, you spend your money elsewhere because you don't like it. That's not good. Don't do that.
You could still go to the Patreon and just like send a message to us telling us how you're not going to subscribe.
I think you'd have to make a Patreon account to send us a message to tell us you're not going to subscribe. Right. So I feel like that's at that point. It's $1 a month.
Malicious at that point.
$1 a month gets you Talking Wizards. $1 an episode gets you uncut versions where we talk for like 20 minutes with our producer about just kind of anything.
Mostly Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, a lot of Magic the Gathering this week was like 20 minutes of that.
Yes.
Anyway, we do want to thank the following patrons for everything they do for us, starting with Vince, the ShamWow guy.
And Chris.
And Michael Winters.
And Joe Frankham.
Slick Rick.
Dean Schmidt.
James Myers.
A winner is me.
Devious Dave's Dildo Dynasty.
And Mike Rotondo.
Are all of the definitely real human beings we want to thank for their kind contributions to the show. If you want to rate and review the show, it would help us a lot, so go do it. Anyway, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.